My M36 wife F35 won't share her sexual fantasy with me. Hello. I posted this last night, and deleted it prematurely. I would like some further advice on this topic. My wife and I have been married for 10 years and together for 15. We have 3 young children under 7. Firstly, our marriage has often had intimacy issues. I am more needy and she is less so. Recently we have been having some ups and downs, but things have been going pretty well. My wife is not very open timely. She does not masturbate, and has always told me she doesn't think about time during the day unless I get her in the mood. The time we do have is extremely pleasurable and enjoyable, and we have a variety of toys that we use occasionally. I also make it a priority that she orgasms first. That aspect is very good. We have time sometimes 1-2 times per week, others 1-2 times per month. It ebbs and flows, and we have kids and lives, so it's not too much of a problem unless it starts to drag on. Our issues really have been around me wanting more intimacy and couple time with her, and her not prioritizing it. As an example, we have had one night alone with no kids in the last 8 years, and have only been out together for dinner twice in the last 4. Recently I have blankly asked her to please take me on a date at home, which she only did after I asked several times, and we spent an hour chatting on some chairs in our yard with a drink. It was lovely. On to the specific problem. We had previously had some really passionate time the night before, so last night I did not try and initiate it. We instead watched Netflix and watched a documentary about fantasies, which is kinda new for us as we usually avoid the topic given her consistent reluctance to discuss time in the past. I asked her at the end if she had ever fantasized about anything, to which she initially said no, then said she did but she wouldn't tell me. She said she thinks it will make me insecure and that she doesn't need to tell me. This kind of floored me, as this is the first time she has ever admitted to even thinking about time outside of the bedroom, so I was really excited and curious about it. It is eating at me that she won't tell me. I feel like a married couple should be close enough to tell each other those things. I'd love to help her explore the fantasy, whatever it is. I'm well aware that she's not in control of them, and don't blame her for fantasizing about whatever it is. I admit there could be things that make me insecure, but I'd rather know and work on it, because there's also a fair chance I won't care at all, and could improve our time life. I don't know what to do. Any advice is appreciated. NB, I doubt she's a size queen. I am average in that department and have purchased bigger toys on a whim, including sleeves, and she flat out refused them. Edit, whether it matters in relation to our time pasts. She had only had time one time with a random and drunken encounter prior to meeting me. I had only been with 3 partners previously and had not had a serious relationship before her. She has never been interested in hearing any of those details. Redditor's reactions, story 2 after. Redditor 1, be careful what you wish for. I'm guessing she knows you very well, so you might want to heed her warning. Op answer, thanks. It's definitely a concern, but I believe I'm able to deal with the consequences of knowing. It could be something that she thinks I'd care about that I don't. We don't often have deep conversations about ourselves, so to me there's a fair chance that I won't mind. Redditor 2, some fantasies are best kept in fantasy land. If she tells you something that makes you uncomfortable, keep this in mind. Redditor 3, just drop it. You are being incredibly naive that her telling you about a fantasy would be something that would be great for her or for you. People can have fantasies that they absolutely don't want to act out. Our pay fantasies can be difficult to share because you don't want to do any of that or pretend any of that. Making it a real thing by talking about it and having your partner talk about it could feel wrong and unsafe to her. If she has fantasies about S-time with a woman, or S-time from the perspective of a man, like she is a man having S-time, or S-time that feels good but isn't possible due to logistics. Group S-time, stranger S-time. These are unsafe scenarios if someone else is suggesting it or describing it, but completely safe if it is only in your mind. It is sweet that you would want to participate or act these out, or at least talk about it and share fantasies, but I think you should listen when she says no. Answer: thanks and I appreciate your view. I wouldn't want her to bring up anything she feels unsafe with. My inkling is that it's more about something that either I don't have or is about someone else, given she said the reason she doesn't want to tell me is because I'll be insecure about it. But I do appreciate what you said, there may be something to it. Story 2, a few months in but still feeling in the fog. Hi, I've been lurking on this subreddit for a little while and finally feel like I should tell my story. This is my first time posting, so hopefully I have things figured out well enough to actually post. D-Day for me was about 3 months ago, but I feel like I should start with a little background. We've been together for 9 years, married for almost 4. We have a son together, going into 2nd grade, he's on spectrum, high functioning but on spectrum. There's also a daughter from her WS previous marriage. About a year and a half after our son was born, she got into a car accident. She didn't seem hurt badly at the time, but there was back pain. WS had surgeries to deal with various issues, then eventually she had surgery on her back too. She still has a lot of pain, some balance issues and even numbness. She has other health issues beyond her back. So most of the child care had fallen to me, playing with him, baths, feeding, therapy, taking to school, etc. I'm the one doing it. Between with the kid and helping her with things and work, I really don't get much time to myself. So having said all that, our S-time life suffered a lot. She takes a lot of drugs for her various conditions and they can make her tired, so she sleeps a lot and is normally asleep before our son. There are times when we are both awake and up for things, but it's pretty infrequent. It isn't a completely dead bedroom, but our S-time life hasn't been great for a while. One day a few months ago she told me a story of how she was accidentally exposed to some blood while out and asked if I thought she should get tested. I said yes, even though it was a small amount, there's always a possibility, so I thought it would be a good idea. This is pre-quarantine. She got tested and most things were okay, but she comes back positive for gonorrhea. I had never been tested for that, so I didn't know if I was positive or not. It was surprising, to put it mildly, and everything I could find said there was no way to catch it, how she was describing. I didn't think something you could have for years without noticing either. At one point I had thought that was a possibility. I hadn't suspected her of anything, so I didn't make that much out of it right then and thought maybe there was a slight possibility of a false positive. Anyway, a few weeks later, she had the treatment, but I hadn't gotten in to see the doctor yet. We were going to have S-time, but since I didn't know whether I was positive or not, we were going to use a xenodom. I didn't have any because, well, we don't need them, and any I would have would be 8+ years old. So she left the room to check her daughter's room and after a few minutes came back with one. However, we had had a drug issue with the older daughter a few months before this, and I had gone through her room looking for paraphernalia, and when I did, I had found one xenodom. But this one didn't match it. I thought maybe she had gotten some new ones, always possible, but I was very worried about what was going on at that point. I went to see the doctor. I told him the story she had given me about how she had gotten gonorrhea, and he said basically, yeah, that's not how that works. I got tested and my results came back negative. So I was concerned. I knew I wasn't going to get the truth out of her. I had already been lied to about the blood. The scene Dom, I did another look in the older sister's room, there was nothing there. Nothing in the bathroom or any place she could easily access them. Eventually I found them in my wife's belongings. I felt like the only way I would get to the truth about things would be to get on her phone, but I didn't know the code to get on it. It took a little while to get it, but eventually I did. I was hoping to find that maybe there had been someone, but that it was over. So I finally got a good opportunity and looked. I checked email and messages and at first didn't see anything that was weird. I checked a messaging app on her phone and there were a few contacts but no chats, so I couldn't be sure about anything there. I took a second look at her texts and nothing seemed amiss at first. The names were ones that sounded familiar, but it does show part of the message and one of them just looked weird to me. I don't remember what exactly I saw, but when I opened it she was chatting with some guy about the size of his DCK, and he was worried he wasn't going to be big enough for her. They were talking about meeting up soon, but she asked him about getting together the following week. There was a second conversation that she was talking about meeting this guy after I fell asleep and that she had been doing that with her last FWB. This guy she wanted to meet sooner since he claimed to have a bigger DCK. So when someone says they were shook, I was shook. Literally I was shaking. I put her phone back and stood in the closet shaking. If you dumped a bucket of the coldest ice water you could find on me, that's how bad I was shaking. I didn't know what to make of it and I couldn't sleep for the next few days. I had a hard time wrapping my head around the reality I saw every day and what I saw in the messages. It's probably very strange, but I didn't say anything to her for a little while. I know that she hasn't felt attractive for a while as a result of everything that has happened to her and how she is now, and I wanted to know for sure this wasn't all talk and just texting she was doing to make herself feel better about her appearance. Not that that wouldn't be bad too, but conversation to feel better about herself just seemed a little better to me than her actually meeting up with guys. At the moment I guess the gonorrhea just didn't enter my thoughts. The night she was talking about meeting the one guy rolled around. She took a shower late in the day, played with her eyebrows and makeup, painted her toes. I was playing with the kid watching this and wondering if I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. Later that night, stupidly, we ended up having time. It wasn't anything great, but it wasn't nothing. She fell asleep and I thought that things probably weren't happening and maybe it was all talk. I fell asleep finally after not really being able to sleep for days. But about an hour later I woke up. After a few minutes I realized there wasn't the snoring in the room there usually is, and when I looked she wasn't in bed. I thought she had gone to the bathroom, but after a few minutes when I looked she wasn't there. Then I looked outside and her car was gone. I didn't know what to do. Eventually I sent her a text. I found her a short time later in the bathroom. She said she went for a drive since she was awake, restless and couldn't sleep, and she then went to bed and fell all asleep. I decided not to confront her then because I didn't know 100% what she had done. I guess I was still hopeful. However, a couple days later I saw the texts between them talking about what they had done that night. A few days later I spoke to a lawyer. That night after I had spoken to the lawyer she disappeared again, going for another drive. A couple days later I saw this was to see a different guy. In both cases the texts implied to me that she wasn't using protection and the condoms I found stayed home when she left. Later on I remembered an earlier time during the quarantine she had gone for a drive late at night. I still keep having to tell myself that she was leaving in the middle of the night during a pandemic to have time, probably unprotected, with strangers she was meeting from the internet. I may not have mentioned this, but in the meantime I found her on a hookup site with a subscription. I waited to confront her, but I guess I just wasn't ready yet, and her parents had been traveling and were self-quarantining, and I thought that's where she would go when she left. When I did talk to her about it, she blamed me for everything and said that I had been alienating her for years by focusing so much on our son. That she had complained about the lack of time, but I had done nothing to try to fix the problem, and that basically it was all my fault this had happened. At the moment I don't know, but I was reluctant to put the nuclear family, so I thought maybe we could at least try before we ended things. So I thought we could try counseling and see what happened. The therapist I've been seeing in IC mentioned my internalizing things that she was saying and believing it. In the meantime, her back wasn't feeling good since she didn't have her usual routines available because of the quarantine. She sought out a therapist and the location nearest didn't seem to be available, so she picked another a little further out. I eventually saw messages about her meeting guys nearby there after her appointments. One of the ones I know she slept with, after a little sleuthing I found, lived within a half-mile of the place. I should probably mention also, since this also matters to my therapist, the phone numbers she was texting were under aliases. They were under a version of her friends' or co-workers' names. If you just glanced or a message popped up saying hi, you wouldn't know anything was out of the ordinary. We talked another time and she left. We've been living apart for a few months now since then. After she left, I saw she had slept with one of the guys again. I stopped keeping track after that, and she wasn't around enough for me to know what she's doing. She still doesn't know I've been on her phone. Her profile is still up on the hookup site, that was never even taken down after we talked the first time. She knows I know about the profile. I have seen messages she was exchanging with various guys, not just the two I know she met, where she talked about having a long-term FWB, for enough years that it would be longer than I've known her. To some guy she was saying how she usually sleeps with single guys, but she considers attached. For the ones I know about, one at least said he was married and one I think was single, so at least that part is true. It's been a lot to deal with. I think it's so unreal, and so different from the reality I was seeing, that I've had a hard time wrapping my head around it. Even now it's just hard to have it sink in. When she's around she doesn't seem like anything much happened, and I think she says it was one time. One benefit I guess of my not telling her immediately was that I got to see how she acted. The day after she went to meet these guys, you would never have known anything, it was just a regular Tuesday. I think I am very much in the fog. I do have moments that I break down, but I generally manage to get myself back together relatively quickly. The therapist at one point seemed to think I was maybe on the other side of the fog already, and on some level maybe I am, but lately I've been pretty emotional, and right now I feel like maybe I just haven't gotten to deal with things enough. Since we've been split, I'm back to work sometimes and working from home others. I'm still mostly taking care of our son. So my time to myself can be limited, and I think it's just taken a while to wrap my head around it. Sorry to make this so long, but there's a lot here. Redditor's reactions. Redditor 1, so she's been cheating all the time you've been married. Are you sure the child is even yours? I hope you've already started divorce paperwork. I don't see any other choice. Redditor 2, you've taken enough acid already. She's been doing you wrong for a long time, and not trying to hide it. She's a bad person, not to mention wife, and of course blames you for her cheating. Get this straight, it was 100% her, not you. Redditor 3, I'm confident she's either bipolar or borderline. Whatever the case, you need to get her out of your life. Just co-parent and let her be a 5 loop plus. Redditor 4, your story shocked me. Although, I don't know why, because we read similar posts every day here. I'm not surprised you're having trouble wrapping your head around things. The selfishness and entitlement your wife has displayed is disgraceful. Thank God you're seeing a counselor. There can be no coming back from this. Please tell me your divorce plans are well underway. Answer, we had talked terms. She actually gave me the paperwork and then she was promptly laid off from work about 2 days later. She's been looking for another job, including out of town and state, so we've been essentially in a holding pattern while she figures out where she's going to be. The terms seemed like they would need to be different depending on where she ends up. I guess it's felt to me like that was a good point to move on from, especially if she leaves the area. Before all this I trusted her completely, so it was just shocking between the SDI and what I found. There are times where I'm still in disbelief, and even though I took photos of the text messages, I still wonder if I somehow read them completely wrong, like did my eyes and brain freeze or something. Redditor 5, are you still married? Answer, for the moment. We had talked terms and she gave me paperwork, but she was laid off from work a couple days later. So we've been letting things be for the moment while she figures out where she's going to be next, since some of the jobs she was interviewing for were out of town and state. Redditor 6, damn, is she broken to be having unprotected time with strangers and barely any emotional connection involved. And that's in the middle of the night right after having time with you. The best thing for you to do is to stop pain shopping by tracking what she's doing, keep up with the therapy so you realize it's not your fault, seek out a divorce you deserve. Someone said here that it may be worth doing a paternity test. Although you will be legally responsible. Hopefully your stepdaughter went packing with mom since she's got issues with drugs. She's not the woman you thought she was. Maybe she has never been that woman. But as her health deteriorates, you don't want to be the one responsible for taking care of her. You deserve better. Continue to be a great father, grieve the loss of the marriage and seek out happier times. Answer, thanks. They both left. With the paternity test, that I'm hesitant about. I've spent so much time with him, and done so much through the years with him that I feel like even if he is actually not biologically my kid, he's still my kid. I've been the main parent for most of the time he's been alive, so I'm not 100% sure if that's a can of worms I want to open.